Welcome back to AJ Kitchen Paper. I'm Asa, this is Oats, and let's get stuck into soba.
Let's go!
So let's start off today by getting stuck in with soba noodle soup, a classic. So chop up an onion nice and fine and pop it over to the side. Next, grab your most well-proportioned carrot, chop off the ends and start peeling them up. And then for easy slicing, we're going to chop him in half and then cut him into long strips. Then once you've got him nice and sliced up, turn him on the side and then make him into tiny little slivers. Now once you're done, pop him in a bowl with your onions because we're going to make this into kakiage, or in this case, fritters. So to give everybody a nice dusting, 4 tablespoons of flour into the bowl and a nice mixity mix for everybody. Now that you've had that nice mixity mix and everybody's nice and coated, let's make some batter. Now for some ungodly reason we decided to measure out everything using tablespoons rather than, grams or something much more normal. Either way, 10 tablespoons of flour, 4 tablespoons of starch, and 1 teaspoon of salt. And then lastly, a little splash of water. Now then give everybody a nice mixity mix. Keep adding in water until you get the consistency of pancake batter. Don't worry too much about lumps and bumps. Now pour your wonderful batter all over your carrots and onions. And of course we need to do a little bit of a mixity mix with all these boys, so get stuck in there with your chopsticks there. And now that you're ready, let's move over to the flame. Alrighty, grab a bunch of water in a big old pan and drop in all of your soba noodles. We're using 2 packs of 80% buckwheat soba noodles. Why not 100% buckwheat? 80% tastes better, that's literally it. Now fish out some lovely looking soba for a little drink. This is super nutrient dense water essentially. Have a sip, it's actually really good. Alrighty, strain those boys out and pop them up to the side. Add 3 very generous tablespoons of oil because we gotta start making that kakiage. Check that the oil is nice and hot and ready and then slide in a ladleful of your mixture. Now let's see if we can fit 2 of these boys in there. So squeeze them in, there you go. Make sure they're nice and separate and do your best to keep them separate as they're cooking and then flip them over. Normally you'd actually deep fry these rather than this shallow fry, but cleaning up that much oil is a pain, so shallow fried pancake fritters it is. Also, strangely enough, because these are shallow fried and on a lower temperature, they ended up being a little bit more oily than we expected. Never mind, I suppose. And off to a kitchen paper line tray for them. Now let's start on that soup. So in a medium-sized pot, add about 1 litre of water, along with around 200 ml of mensuyu, or Japanese noodle soup base. Bring him to the boil and chuck in your nudes. Now that everybody is nice and warm, turn off the heat and let's plate up. So in a very large bowl, we're going to pack in a bunch of noodly nudes. Now that on top of your pile of noodly nudes, let's pour over some of that soup. Mensuyu makes for the easiest and fastest soup in the world, I swear. And then on top of that, we're going to pop our kakiage and then a good classic handful of spring onions. 1, because spring onions are tasty, and 2, because we can't have just a brown dish. Do you see why the spring onions are worth it, guys? Our drink for tonight is a tiny choya, which is a very cheap plum wine, but it's so small and it even has a plum in it. Amazing. I like it for the plum. Alrighty, Risky. Taste test time. This is a super easy and in fact really high protein dish, and it's super nutritious. Just make sure that you read the back of the packet to make sure that it's actually 80% buckwheat noodles, because there are heaps of soba noodles that are basically only flour. Now even after grabbing a bowl of this for myself, there was so many noodles left over, so we popped them in the fridge for the next day. So what to do with all these nudes? Let's show you soba sushi. So first off, let's start with the ingredients of our sushi. Chop off the ends and then we're gonna slice these boys. So on that vertical line, chop it in half, chop him in half again, and then chop him in half a 3rd time. Somehow. Magic, black magic, I swear. Alrighty, off to the side with those boys because it's time for Imitation Crab. Grab your
delicious crab meat.
Now all you're gonna do is just take them out of the packet. Note that these are individually wrapped for whatever reason. I'm sure it's to keep the shape, but clearly they don't care about the environment. That edible paper wrapping still works, guys. Now to go along with our soba sushi, let's also make some miso soup. So a good handful of wakame seaweed, beautifully rinsed. And let's just choppity chop this boy into small bitties, just to make it that little bit easier to eat. And now let's just pop that back into our strainer and set him aside because we're gonna get that tofu going. Grab around a 300-gram block of soft tofu. First cut him in half and then cut him up into small little blocks. Now once you've got him all chopped up, we can pop him over to the side and let's get back to those sushi toppings. Crack in 3 eggs into a nice little bowl because we're gonna make some Japanese omelettes. So in with those egos, let's pop in 1 tablespoon of mirin, 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, and then 1 teaspoon of sugar. Now grab your chopsticks and get everybody a whiskety whisk. Alrighty, now that everybody's nice and fluffy, let's go over to the flame. Grab your rectangular fry pan, put in a little bit of oil, and to make sure that every crevice of this fry pan is absolutely covered, use some folded up kitchen paper to get it everywhere. So in a very hot fry pan, pour a small amount of your eggs in and make it into half scrambled eggs, making sure that the pan is fully covered. And no holes please. As this is going in sushi, you don't need to roll this up super tight, so just once over towards yourself. Now slide him back away from you and pour more of your eggs in. Make sure that you lift up your already cooked eggs to get that eggy batter underneath. Now once that second layer has firmed up for you, flip him back on itself again, and again slide him back away from you, and then we're going to do the exact same thing again. So last time, pour in the rest of your egg, make sure you get him underneath your cooked egg, and once that bottom has firmed up a bit, flip him back over towards you. Use your spatula and the side of the pan to make him nice and square, and pop him off to the side. Let's cook up that miso soup now. Into about 500 ml of water, pour in your dashi stock. Add in your blocks of tofu, everybody into the pool, along with all of your lovely wakame. Give everybody a nice mixity mix in there, lovely. Bring all that up to the boil, and now that everybody's nice and warm, grab half a ladleful of your favourite miso, and then using a whisk, let's dissolve this boy. This just makes sure that you get no lumps of miso anywhere. Excellent. Now let us turn our attention back to our soba sushi. Now because this is sushi, we do need to season our soba noodles. 4 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar, 3 tablespoons of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of salt. And let's just quickly whiskety whisk that boy up. Now that your seasoning is all ready to go, let's dump in our soba noodles. Once you got them all in there, grab your chopsticks and start mixing it all up so everybody's nice and coated.
Alright.
Quickly pop it off to the side because we've got a cool down ego to deal with. Chop them up nice and vertically into some thin, nice long ass strips. Now everything is ready to go. Let's start making our sushi. Let's maki. On a beautiful bamboo rolling sheet, let's place 1 sheet of nori and then pile our nudes into the center. Just a word of warning with how much you're putting in, you don't want to overfill your sushi roll. No bigger than a centimeter should be fine. Place a strip of cucumber, dead in the center, and then place your
delicious crab meat
along with your egg, and let's roll him up nice and tight. Squeezing as you go to make sure he's going to stay all the way in there, and then watch your dreams fall apart as he falls apart. Do your best to try and paste him back together, squeezing him with your giant hands, then realize that you should probably just take advice from the internet and roll it up in a second nori sheet to make everything just that little bit more stable. Now you'll notice that there's actually an edge that's loose here. Now you can either glue it down using 1 soba noodle, or you can do what Oats did, which is to just essentially ignore it and then wrap it up using Glad Wrap. So pull out an enormous sheet of Glad Wrap and then wrap him and roll him up like the tiny burrito baby he is. And now that he's all nice and tight and packed in there, give him a bit of a chop and a slice, doing your absolute best to not squish him and keep that rounded shape. Now then unwrap all that plastic and place him on a plate. I'm feeling today that we should make a nice sushi cake. So let's make this first one just the foundations, and let's start rolling up a few more, I think, to make the greatest sushi castle ever. So again, soba in the middle, along with your ingredients. Also, feel free to adjust these ingredients in any way you like. You don't have to use imitation crab meat. I think that maybe using one of those Western sushi creations like smoked salmon and cream cheese would be an interesting addition to this. Alright, take your rolled up boy and then pop him on another sheet. Make sure to have a quick snack on any stray noodly noots, if you can that is, of naughty, and then rolly. And then again we're going to wrap him up in some Glad wrap and then cut him out. Now that again, once he's nice and cut out and not too flattened by our strong meaty hands, unwrap your tiny presents and then stack them up to make the greatest castle in the world. And no, that point is not up for debate. It is the greatest castle in the world. Because let's be real people, when you compare this to anything else, it's not a contest. Alongside your monstrous castle, grab some miso soup, nice and steaming hot, and then spring onions, because of course we need spring onions. And we had some left over from yesterday. Now let us grab the goon of sake, cooking sake, and serve him up alongside what we've got here. Beautiful, lovely. Now that you've taken a nice gulp of some very dry sake, let's first show off our beautiful work to our audience. Now let's get ready to taste test. I've lived here for over 5 years and I had no idea that this existed. You for sure need to have a go at this, because I am for damn sure that you cannot buy this in any restaurant here. This is an incredibly protein-rich and nutritious alternative to sushi, and it tastes so good. Just like with any sushi, you need to make sure that it's properly seasoned, otherwise it just kind of tastes like a bunch of noodles, I'm sure. But this is so good, and it's easy on the wallet. If you've got leftover soba noodles just rolling around your house, you should definitely have a go at this. Next time we see my parents, we're definitely making this for them. But what about you? Did you know that this existed before now? If you did, leave us a like, and if you didn't, have a crack and let us know how you go in the comments below. Alrighty, till next time.